Friday.
Yeah.
And and you know what? I ran across something that said the 47th Annual March for Life Liberty last Friday, historic and hopeful. And President Trump did something none of his other predecessors had done, and that is he attended the pro-life rally. But you know what else was outstanding about it? Here we had tens of thousands of marchers, including Nicholas Sandman, Covington High School, young, elderly, every single race.
Yeah.
But unlike the typical illegal protest, guess what? All those marchers, were careful not to leave a mess for the maintenance workers to pick up.
Yeah.
Don't you love that when conservatives do things like that?
Yeah, the Tea Party was pretty famous for doing that as well here in D.C. I mean, the president came out and, I know a lot of people will look at this as, he was doing this as only for political reasons. But, all along the first 3 years here of his presidency, he's been looking out and for the pro-lifers and not forgetting that they helped get him to the White House. He believes in these causes. He was in his element. He, obviously the people there, they were, ecstatic that the U.S. president would come and actually speak to them. He gave about a 15, 20-minute speech to them. And it was it was something that was uplifting. And when you look at, things, here with the March for Life, you look at this is an enthusiastic group that believes that all life is valuable, not just, everybody should just go get an abortion, especially up in a lot of, Democrats and really far left progressives feel that you can have an abortion basically up till birth, which, is murder usually. But the president has taken this, he's owned the issue, and he's done a good job. And the March for Lifers are actually out there supporting the president. They will be voting for the president, whether anybody on the left thinks this was a stunt or not by the president. Something he's toyed with for a long time in going. And he also is, these people, these young people especially, that go up to these events and make that walk. These are people who will go out and knock on doors, and they're the ones that are going to get their friends to go vote. These are people that are, known for a huge voting block because they do follow through and actually vote. Whereas some of the Antifa people, if they're hungover from the night before, they're like, forget about it, I'm not really going to vote. They're not committed to the vote. These people are very committed, and they're very committed to voting for life, which kind of I'd like to segue into the whole Middle Eastern war, where you have a lot. It seems like now the Democrats are the pro-war party now, but you think that maybe the president is picking up on this. He's been trying to get the country out of these wars in the Middle East. And maybe it's these pro-lifers that actually kind of shine a light on life, if you will, and actually guide the president to make the right decision in saying that, look, war is bad. I mean, it's obviously death is surrounded by, but what are we doing in all of these wars? Why are we not over here, spending the money in this country? So, you look at those kind of scenarios, and it just seems that the president continually has to come out of all of this, with all of this bad advice from his visors sitting around him, telling him, no, we got to stay there. No, you shouldn't go march with the March for Life people because that's going to look like this. He just doesn't seem to be getting a lot of good press about anything he does. But at least with the March for Life, it's a really, they're unbelievable people that go out there, and every year in January when it's cold and miserable in DC, they're marching, and they've been asking presidents all the way to go through, and President Trump finally followed through and went to this event, and the people attending the event were ecstatic that the president was sitting there.
Yeah, and back on the wars. You mentioned in your latest report, how he went in and he's in front of all these commanders, chiefs, and all this stuff, and they are sworn, to what would you say, sworn to obey the commander-in-chief's commands. But he was in front of these warring generals, you might call them, and higher ups, and he says here he was calling the war they'd been fighting a loser war. They didn't want to hear that. He said, "You're all losers," Trump said. You don't know how to win anymore. And where's the one about the money? Yeah, he said,
Yeah.
I want to win. We don't win wars anymore. We spend $7 trillion. Everybody else has got the oil,
Yep.
and we're not winning anymore. Well, we certainly have the oil now, don't we?
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting passage. I mean, you and I talk about this a great deal, but this meeting took place in July of 2017. And now we're seeing, when you see some of the inside talk that's actually being released, you kind of see where Trump is going. I know you and I were, talking about we've been talking about the wars and how he's like, okay, he pulls the generals in. Hey, okay, what's it going to take? Get us out of Syria. We're going to get out of Syria. What do we have to do? Okay, boss, don't worry about it. I'll go figure it out. And then they come back 90 days later. Why aren't we out of this war? And you can see that this conversation relates to exactly what happened in July of 2017 at the Pentagon, where Mattis and, Cohen, who was one of his closest advisors, and these people were going to go in and school, if you will, President Trump on, the virtues of war. And they thought they'd be very clever by not using the word globalist. They decided they would use the word internationalist and thought the president would fall for that hook, line, and sinker. And of course, Steve Bannon was there in the room. And the second the general started lecturing the president, he's like, he says, directly quoted, saying, this isn't going to be good. This is going to be wild. The president's not going to react well to this, in which he didn't. He reacted poorly.
Got to take our break. Kimberly Dvorak, streaming live as we speak on Facebook, Periscope.com, and the website is thekdreport.com. When we come back, I got to talk about something that happened. Baghdad, Iranian-backed militia. Kimberly knows a lot about Iran. Don't go away. Wilder, CRN, with Kimberly Dvorak, and she is the Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. And they're not very responsible there. I noticed Kimberly and I have talked about Iran, for years, and protests that were going on and how the Iranian youngsters, so to speak, got a taste of freedom, and they still want it. Over the weekend, I don't think this is a really big deal, but it could have been. U.S. Embassy in Baghdad struck by at least one rocket Sunday evening, and everybody's safe, no deaths, but it was the security situation remains tense, and the Iranian-backed armed groups remain a threat. That was from the State Department spokesperson. Yeah.
Well, this is definitely one of those consequences for taking out Soleimani. We know that the Ayatollah has spoken on the event and said that they would be allowing the various militias to attack U.S. interests outside the U.S. So now you're seeing the wrath, I guess, of these militias that have been given the green light, in essence, to attack U.S. soldiers and U.S. interest abroad. And this, I believe, was one of the very first ones. We also are just now getting word, too, that the Taliban, at least they're claiming, that they brought down an Air Force plane that had CIA agents on board. They shot it down. Where there's no word, about confirmation from that yet, just from the Pentagon. But now you're seeing terrorist organizations, and you're seeing these, different organizations that are upping the ante on getting rid of America from the region, and again, going back to what President Trump told his generals back in 2017, you guys don't win wars anymore. You're losers. You're a bunch of babies. Those kind of statements start ringing true when you look at what's happening right now in the Middle East. And I think that in Iraq, the government has asked the United States to leave now, so we don't become an occupier. These are off-ramps, and I think these are off-ramps that the president should be taking, at least seriously looking into. It's not a retreating. We're just going to let people in that region. If France wants to, keep control of what's going on in Iraq, let France step up and do something. If Germany wants it, let them step up and do something. The president's right. These people have shorted the United States with NATO. They have not been paying their full bills. They owe us millions and millions of dollars. We continue to fight the wars on their behalf, and we're going to start seeing more attacks on our facilities abroad as a result. So, figure out a way to say, okay, well, we've won Iraq. We're going to, we're just leaving. We're handing it to you, and we're going to trust that you can get it, together. And sayonara. And, you can head to any other of the European nations. If they want to help you, feel free. Again, if they're really strong swimmers, we don't have to worry about them. They're not going to swim to the United States. So there are ways for the United States to get out of this. Trump is trying to do this, and we saw with some of the leaked information about a conversation at the Pentagon between President and Mattis that this, he as back in 2017, he doesn't have much faith in the generals right now. And he shouldn't, because if we can't win in 17, 18, 19 years of war against Afghanistan, that's an embarrassment. And of course, we know we can win, but with the rules of engagement that are set in place, we're not allowed to win. And if we're not serious about it, then we need to come home and end it.
And you wonder just how deep the deep state is involved in all of this.
Oh, yeah.
So,
big money.
Out of time again. Excellent report as usual. Want to remind you, listener, viewer, that this will be on YouTube later, unless they start censoring you like they're doing a lot of other people. So watch out. Hey, Kimberly Dvorak, and the website is thekdreport.com. And next week we're going to be on Tuesday.